Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 198, recorded live and thankfully back in the home office here, Monday, April, let me look it up, 28th in the year 2014. I am your host and amateur storm chaser, Todd Klindt. And while I, spend my evenings chasing down tornadoes and all that, the movie Twister, a whole bunch of the movie Twister was filmed about 15 miles away from me here. When I'm not out doing that, during my day job, when I don't have my cape and all that on, I work at Rackspace. You'll see the flag is back this week, back in its proper place of honor. While you're listening to this, and not if you're in your car or anything like that, or on a treadmill or whatever. But if you're just sitting at your desk, you got your headphones on, whether you're just doing it so your coworkers don't talk to you or not, whatever, I'm not judging. While you're listening to this thing, go on out to SharePoint.Rackspace.com. It's got all the information that you need to know about our SharePoint offerings at Rackspace. And if you've got any questions in the lower left-hand tile, because our website is all metro-y or modern-y or whatever we're calling it these days, the lower left-hand tile, there's a Contact Us button. Go ahead and click that. It's going to bring up a web form. You can tell us whatever questions you have. If you want to talk to a salesperson, honestly, nobody really wants to talk to a salesperson, but if you need information, you got to talk to salespeople. But click that, talk to them, find out what we've got. Also on the SharePoint.Rackspace.com page, we have our fun game, Super Fanatiblaster, or whatever the lawyers are making us call it this week, and you can go out there and have some fun with that too. And that's all out at SharePoint.Rackspace.com. So the good news about the production notes part of tonight's Netcast is that there are a lot of production notes. So get comfortable. If you're in your car, make sure you got the AC set just right and all that. We've got a lot to cover. So last week we were at SPTechCon, and if you haven't downloaded 197 yet, go ahead and grab that one. It's always fun when I've got Shane in the studio with me to mock and abuse appropriately, but we had a lot of technical difficulties, and so that we talked about that a little bit. And I apologize. The audio ended up not being too bad. I ended up having to do some trickery to get some of the background noise and all that out of the audio, because we weren't using my fancy mic because I didn't have drivers for it installed anywhere. So it's in the shot and you can see it, but it's really not being used. What we ended up using was one of the mics off the webcam. So the audio needed some tweaking, but I think I got that mostly figured out. But the camera itself was sitting on a tripod, which is good, but it was sitting on the table that Shane and I were sitting at, which is bad. So at one point, Shane pounded the table and the thing, but every time one of us would move our leg, and also sitting at that table was everybody in the audience, which fortunately was not too many people, but anytime anybody bumped the table, it shook the mic. So, if you get seasick easy, I would not watch that one. Maybe take some Dramamine before you watch 197, because there is a lot of shaking and all that going on, which is funny because we had a tripod, so we could have just set it on the ground. But we chose not to go that route. We chose to do that Steadicam stuff, like like Michael Mann and all those guys are doing the big Hollywood hits. We decided to go that route instead. I think it really gives it a gritty, edgy look. But so we had some production issues with that one, but I think, like I said, mostly it turned out okay. The audio I was able to get done. 196, so I was out doing all the RSS stuff. So also 197 got out late because I was gone all week last week. I didn't get home until Friday, and then I took a red eye, so I slept all day Friday. Saturday was busy, Sunday was busy, and then today about noon, I'm like, I don't remember ever making a netcast for 197, so I threw it all together and didn't get it published and out until tonight. And when I was updating the RSS for the video feeds, I realized that not only was 197 not out there, 196 wasn't out there either. It was on YouTube, and it was on the site just itching for people to download it, but it wasn't actually in the RSS feed. So those of you that do the video RSS feed, you'll notice you have two presents waiting for you when you open up your player, 196 and 197. I recommend watching them in order. The story progresses. You don't want to skip an episode. You don't want to be one of those people that watches the last episode in a series and then goes back and watches the stuff that leads up to it. You don't want to miss a minute, so grab 196 before you do 197. But just beware, they're both going to come down. So that all happened today. And of course, for all of this, the hardware issues that we had last week, this is all Shane's fault. Every bit of it is all Shane's fault. I just don't know what else to say about that. So, but the production stuff seems to be together. This week should be a little easier to produce and all that. So thanks for your continued patience on my ever crappy production. All right, let's move on to the topics. The first topic would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about it. SPTechCon last week was SPTechCon in San Francisco, and they've moved it. The first 2 or 3 SPTechCons in San Francisco were really out by the airport in Burlingame. Beautiful, scenic, sunny Burlingame, where there's nothing to do except watch planes land all day long. But the last couple of SPTechCons have been downtown by Union Station. It's a really great location, a bunch of fun stuff you can walk to. If you've got some comfortable shoes, you can walk down to the wharf and all that kind of stuff, and you're right downtown. There's all kinds of fun things. If you want to go wrestle some bums, that's 2 or 3 blocks away. It's all good stuff. A lot of good shopping, things like that. So that's always a good time to go down to that. And those guys, BZ Media, they put on a hell of a show. Dave Rubenstein and Ted Barr and those guys, Stacy, all those folks. It's been fun. This was like the 10th SPTechCon, I think, something like that. And I've done every one of them, so it's been fun to watch how much better they've gotten, both in content, because now they don't have to just have guys like me speak there. They can actually get real good speakers. But then the BZ team, they do a bunch of these conferences. They do SPTechCon, they do an Android one. I think they're doing a big data one, whatever that is. But they've gotten better and better over the years. So it's been fun watching those guys improve over the years. So they put on a good show. This show was a little smaller than normal simply because, 4 weeks ago or whatever was SharePoint conference. And having the SharePoint conference be a month away from SPTechCon hurt them, but also having the SharePoint conference, so close. It really wasn't in the same quarter, but it's pretty close. So there were some people that would have had to choose between them, and it's tough to choose against the SharePoint conference. But they still did a very respectable job. It was still 1,000-ish people, something like that. But one thing I've noticed is that the audience for the 2 events isn't exactly the same. So there were certainly people who didn't go to SPTechCon, or didn't go to SharePoint conference I saw at SPTechCon because they're at a different spot in their SharePoint career, and so the sessions at SPTechCon made more sense to them. Also, a lot of people from San Francisco, obviously, because it was pretty easy for them to get there. But once again, I'd like to thank the folks at BZ Media for inviting me out there, putting up with me, and really putting up with Shane, because he's much worse. So that was a good time. Shane and I did 3 sessions. We did on Tuesday a half-day session on upgrade, which ended up being 3 hours or so. And I was a little nervous about that. We had done an upgrade session at SharePoint conference, and it was the typical 75 minutes. And we ran out of time before we ran out of material, which is often the case because Shane and I just like to talk and talk and talk. But I wasn't sure if we had 3 hours worth of material. I wasn't sure if we had another, almost 2 hours worth of material. And so I was a little nervous. Shane and I went over our demos and went over our talking points and all that beforehand, and it worked out pretty well. I think 3 hours was about exactly right. We got to answer everybody's questions, which is something that we never get to do enough of in any of our sessions, I feel like, because we always want to cram as much information as we can in, and we love doing demos, and those never go right, so they always take longer than we plan. But we always feel bad because we always have a rush of people coming up to the stage to ask us questions. And this time I feel like we got it all answered. Now that might have just been because we had the last half of the day. So when 5 o'clock came, people were like, I could find out more stuff about SharePoint migration, or I can get the hell out of here and go have fun. So, but I felt like we did a great job of getting the audience discussion and making sure that everybody walked away with the information that they needed, because that's really what the goal is. Whenever I go to any of these conferences, SharePoint conference, Tech Ed, whatever, my goal is always to make sure that the attendees have a good conference. And if that's, getting the answer to that one burning question or whatever, And so I feel like with that upgrade session, I feel like we did a pretty good job. We got everything answered. We didn't run out of material. It was pretty good. Yes, there were some hecklers in the room, some incredibly disrespectful folks heckling us both online and in person. That'll happen, though. So that one went pretty well. And then we did on Wednesday, or not Wednesday. Wednesday we had the day off. I'll come back to that in a second. Thursday morning we had like a general admin session, and that was weird for a couple of reasons. Number one, we didn't have the session done before we came out. We had an idea of, so the idea for the session was admin things that were different from in SharePoint 2013 from SharePoint 2010, and so we kind of had some ideas on what we were going to talk about, but we didn't have slides. We didn't have it all figured out. We threw that all together Wednesday, and I think that went pretty well. And so, but you know, so while I was gallivanting around on Wednesday, Shane kind of put it together, and then Wednesday night I rearranged it all and added some stuff, added my flair to it. So that was a session we weren't prepared for, in that we hadn't went through preparations, hadn't practiced, all that kind of stuff. But the other thing that was funny was the room we were in, they, instead of having rows of rectangular tables and chairs, it was still set up with all the round tables. So it looked like we were giving out awards or trying to get everybody to join Amway or something like that. It was really weird. It was like an after dinner thing or something. I don't know. But it was like a 9 o'clock session in the morning. So I don't know if they just forgot to make the room up or what. But it was kind of interesting. So it was, but the session went well. Again, we got a lot of questions, which is good because that means we're getting people thinking. So that was a good session. And then that afternoon we did a PowerShell session, and that was sort of a beginning PowerShell one. So that was a pretty good one. We've done that about 1,000 times. So that was like a very comfortable shoe. We got to try out some new material, try out some new jokes, all that kind of stuff. But that room was packed. I mean, there's always people just getting into PowerShell. So it was all good. So the sessions went well. I think we got some good feedback. We had a booth down there also, and we had a lot of traffic there. Had the orange dart game, whatever the heck they're calling it, and it had a lot of traffic. Met a lot of folks. Had a couple of people that I'd never met before that were either blog readers or Netcast listeners, and so they introduced themselves to me. Always appreciate that. Don't ever worry about being shy and coming up to me and approaching me. It's no big deal. That's something that I really enjoy. Then it was funny. One guy. And I didn't tell Shane about this. He would love this. But one guy came up to me after, I don't remember which session it was. One of the sessions, admin session. Anyway, it was one of the sessions he had signed up for and was going to the session and didn't know who I was. And then I made a reference to my blog and brought my blog up. And he's like, oh, my God, that's the guy. I go to that blog all the time. I recognize that ugly layout and all that. So that was funny. So after the session, he's like, hey, I didn't know it was you. So that was a good time there. I enjoy all that stuff. So thanks to everybody who came to our sessions. Saw a lot of familiar faces. Always feel good about that. Getting in front of a group of people and talking, it can be a little intimidating, but seeing those familiar faces out there definitely helps. So that was a good time. So I talked about Wednesday. We didn't have any sessions Wednesday, so we flew in and did the Netcast on Monday night, and then Tuesday we did our half-day deal, and then the first half of that day we prepared for our half-day deal. Wednesday, a buddy of mine, Corey Emmons, and I drove up to Petaluma to see my good pal, Leo Laporte. We went to the Brick Twit House, and we're there for the filming of Windows Weekly. So that used to be on Thursday, and now it's on Wednesday mornings. It's a Wednesday morning, 11:30 Pacific, which is 1:30 Central, usually right after lunch. Went up there, and so that was a good time. There was us and then some nice Norwegian gentleman who was in there. And when I went up there last year, Mary Jo Foley's one of the regular guest hosts. She was gone that week, so they let me fill in for her, and that was a very exciting thing. this week everybody was there. Paul and Mary Jo were there, and there was a bunch of people setting up. So I didn't get on camera, but Leo recognized me I've seen him. Obviously I went up there and did the show with him, and then I've seen him a couple times at the New Media Expo. So he recognized me, and so if you get a chance to listen to it, and I don't have the number. Someone in the chat room wants to see what the last Windows Weekly was. I don't get on camera, but he does talk to me a bunch while it's on. He references me and all that. And there's Mary Jo talks about Service Pack 1 for SharePoint, some of the stuff with that, and Leo and I talk a little. So it was kind of cool. It was nice of him to give me a shout out like that. He didn't have to do that. So that was pretty fun. I got to go up there. Leo is affectionately referred to as the Podfather. He's the guy that made all this happen. Certainly this particular Netcast would not exist if it weren't for Leo Laporte and the stuff that he'd done. So going up to the Brick Twit House is kind of like going to the, well, without any offense, it's like going to the birthplace of all this. And so it's always fun to see how they're doing things and all that. So that was a good time. So, but all in all, SPTechCon was a rousing success. I think it was a great time. Shane and I did our lightning talk. The lightning talks were, when the folks at SPTechCon came up with the lightning talks, however many years ago, they were supposed to be little 5-minute chunks for a company to go up, basically salesmen to go up and hawk their wares and talk about that kind of stuff. And that's how they started out. And at the time, well, I think for all of them, Rackspace has been a sponsor, so we were asked if we wanted to do it. And the first time, Shane and I didn't want to do boring salesman-y stuff. We're just not that way. So we basically looked at it as an open mic night to try out comic material. And so the first couple times it was really jarring because you'd have a guy go up there, here's my great SharePoint add-in. It adds a weather widget to your page. It was great. Here you go. You can find us in booth 106. And then Shane and I come up there with our clown outfits on and honking each other's noses and stuff like that. But it's been great because there are far funnier people in the SharePoint community than Shane or I. And fortunately, those people have taken that whole concept and ran with it. So folks at Christian Buckley and Chris McNulty and all those guys have taken that spirit of, we don't need to come up here and sell stuff. We can just come up here and be hooligans for a bit. So it's always fun. It's always fun to watch. So Lori in the chat room, she got a guest appearance on Mark Rackley's. And it just ends up being, again, amateur night or open mic night. So those are always fun. Got to do those. Shane and I do a terrible job preparing for those, and so we wrote our material right before we went on. So that material was about an hour old when we went up there. But it was a good time and great crowd. So thanks to everybody for all that. So, all right, for SPTechCon, I think that's it. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and I can't believe I blew like 17 minutes talking about SPTechCon. The next thing, and the big elephant in the room, is SharePoint 2013 Service Pack 1. What's new with this? It's like a daily gossip thing. It's who knows what the new developments are. So last week at some point, I forget which day it was, Microsoft re-released Service Pack 1 for SharePoint 2013. This time with fewer can't install the next patch bugs, or so they promise. And I've got a blog post on that. If you go to toddklindt.com/SP2013, SP1 again, and again that's going to be in the lower third down here, that has the new links to the Service Pack 1. They retired the old KB article numbers and released new ones, so the old links won't work, and you'll still get that page. We took this down, so there's new links. I've got those out there in that blog post. If you didn't have Service Pack 1, then just keep on keeping on testing it, and having your test environments, all that kind of stuff, and then drop it on your RTM or forward environment. Keep all that up. If you already have Service Pack 1, if you had the first one, the breaks everything Service Pack 1, the fix for that is to install the new Service Pack 1 over top of the old Service Pack 1. And that fixes the nasty can't patch SharePoint bug that came with the first Service Pack 1. Not exactly intuitive, but it is what it is. And so the instructions for how to do that are in my blog post. And there are Service Pack 1s for SharePoint Foundation, SharePoint Server, Project Server, and Office Web Apps. Office Web Apps was interesting. I didn't expect to get a second Service Pack 1 for that because it's not really SharePoint. It's kind of the standalone thing. Exchange can use it, Link can use it, your file systems can use it, your file shares. But it did get a new SP1, so make sure you update all of those when you go out there. But now, since we've got two Service Pack 1s, how do you know which Service Pack 1 you have? Now, an easy way to see which Service Pack 1 you have is when the next patch comes out, either the April cumulative update for 2013, which would be coming out any day now, hopefully, or whichever thing that you install. You try to install it and you get whatever the error is that keeps you from being able to install it. That's one way to know that you've got the wrong SP1. But they did some weird stuff. So on my SP2010 and 2013 builds pages, at the top, I've got some ways to determine which patch level you're at. And kind of the way that I've been doing it all along is to get you to look at the build number of the farm. So you can go to Central Admin, servers in this farm, it'll tell you at the top, or you can go to PowerShell and do it the cool way with getSPFarm.build version, and that will give you a numeric version. You look it up on my list. That's what, and that's how you figure out what you've got. Unfortunately, both Service Pack 1s have the same farm build number. So with both of them, if you go out to your farm and do all that that funny business, you're going to get the same build number that I don't have in front of me right now. Let's look and see what it is. So regardless of which Service Pack 1 you've got installed, you're going to get 15.0.4569.1000. So that makes it very tough. You can't use any of those methods up there to figure out which Service Pack 1 you have installed. And as far as I can tell, the only difference is that the new SP1 does not have the patching bug, and the new SP1 does not have the search, the SharePoint Foundation search issue. So there was, when that Service Pack 1 first came out, everybody's like, oh my goodness, it's got this horrible bug in it. Search in Foundation doesn't work. And then, a couple of weeks later, everybody's like, Service Pack 1 has this horrible bug in it. You can't put any patches on afterwards. So both of those were addressed in the new Service Pack 1. So what I discovered after putting Service Pack 1 on a couple of boxes is that you can tell which version of Service Pack 1 you're installing by looking at the Manage Patch Status page in Central Admin. So Central Admin, patching and updates, and then there's that page that shows you all of the different components of SharePoint and what patch level they're at. And while the farm one looks the same, the farm build, the component versions are new now. So the new, so before, instead of being the old SP1 was 15.0.4569. If you have the new SP1, then the components are 4571. And so that's one way to tell. Now you can also go into, control panel, patches or programs, uninstall patch, and look in that way, or look for the KB article. I didn't want to do it that way because if you had server or foundation, it was different KB articles and all that, but you could also tell that way. So if you go into the Manage Patch Status page and your build numbers are 15.0.4569, then you need to install that Service Pack 1, the new one over top. And I've mostly got all of the SharePoint 2013 builds page stuff sorted out for that. I've got both builds on there. I've got links to both of their wiki articles, things like that. There's a couple of things I need to clear up. If you're reading those pages, Service Pack 1 or Service Pack 1 Mark II, I'm calling it, or any of those, and something's missing information or whatever, leave me a comment in one of the blog posts. I've got a couple of blog posts on the Service Pack 1 debacle, but go ahead and leave me some blog posts or leave me some comments there. I've had a bunch of comments on both of those, and I'm certainly open to suggestions, so let me know about that. So, and if you've put the new SP1 on, let me know what what your experience has been, if anything's gone haywire, any of that. So that's been a lot of this last week, is just figuring out what the story is on that, because of course that stuff always happens when I'm traveling, so I don't have access to all my servers, and I can't spend as much time playing with patches as I'd like to, because that's It's just one of the things that makes me happy. I calm myself by patching SharePoint and all that. All right, so we've got a couple minutes left. I promise not to run over on this one because I've got some stuff that I want to do later tonight. You guys, your time is important. And this last 197 is almost an hour long. Holy cow! If anybody makes it all the way to the end of that, they're a saint. It's terrible. So over the last several podcasts here, Netcast, whatever you want to call them, I've talked about some new stuff, specifically OneNote. So we talked a while back about how OneNote is free, which is cool. So everybody should have OneNote. We talked about the app for Windows Phone, the Office Lens, that scans things and uploads them into OneNote, into your quick dealio thing. We talked about how you can create new tabs in the spots that you need them in OneNote. And a bunch of this stuff is built on the fact that I use OneNote for all my show notes. So I'm looking right now in OneNote, and that's where all my notes are, and all the links and all that stuff that I'm pasting, that's all in OneNote. And I'm also using a cool feature. I've got it shared out, so while I'm doing this, Lori Gowan is putting the time signatures in, so when I render the video out, I can put the lower thirds in the right spot. Great functionality. But another thing that I'm doing to make this process easier for me, because I have a OneNote page for each Netcast, is I'm using a thing called page templates, because every one of my Netcast pages starts out the same. It's got Netcast whatever at the top. It's got a block in the middle that says intro, production notes, topics, self-promotion, things like that. It's got a thing on the side where I put show title notes. Every one of them is the same. So for a while I had an empty thing where I would just copy those pieces out, create a new page, and put them in. But then I was poking around and I noticed that OneNote has templates. So what I did was I created a page that had the intro, the production, all that kind of stuff, all the pieces of where I wanted them and all the headings and all that kind of stuff. And I saved it as a page template, and then I made that page template the default for that section. So now when I after every Netcast, I put the notes in for the next Netcast. And so tonight when I put the page in for Netcast 199, I'll click the button, it'll put in, put it right above 198 where it goes, but it will already have all those sections and everything populated in. Page templates. So if you use OneNote for the same stuff a lot, like if you use it for meeting notes or whatever, look into page templates and see if you can leverage those to create the pages with all the stuff in it. So interesting stuff. Okay, so Brian Lalancette brings up an interesting thing. One of the things that I didn't talk about this week, but have talked about in the past, is that if you had SharePoint 2013 RTM and applied the SP1 patch to it, the first one broke, kaput, broke bad. But if you had an MSDN subscription or a volume license subscription and it had SP1 integrated, then you did not have the bug. You did not have the problem. It was the patching process that broke it. It wasn't the patch itself. So what I haven't done, and what Brian Lalancette did, was he took an SP1 integrated ISO, which was not broken, and applied SP1 on top of it, and I assume the new SP1, he doesn't say in here, so SP1 2. But it does update all the stuff in Jake and makes the changes in Central Admin. So I would have not thought, wouldn't have thought to try that, but it looks like that works. So that's good. Brian Lalancette, if you guys aren't aware of, he is the father of AutoSPInstaller. So if you get to install SharePoint a lot, check that out at autospinstaller.codeplex.com. Good stuff. Okay, so another tangentially related thing. This somebody brought this up in the chat room. I think it was Mark Christman, but he's gone now. He fell asleep on me. If you are jealous of all of your friends that have Surface Pro 2s like me, I have one. It's the secret to my success. I run a Surface Pro 2. It is my desktop machine. It is what I use during the day. And then when I travel, I just close it up, and it's my travel tablet. It's awesome. Those Surface Pro 2s are kind of pricey, kind of spendy. But right now on Slick Deals, there is a educational thing running, so like to buy graduates and that kind of stuff. So you can get Surface Pro 2s pretty cheap. Now, I don't remember exactly how much. I have the 256 gig Surface Pro 2. So it has 256 gig of storage, but I got it because it's got 8 gig of RAM, whereas the lower models have 4 gig. I seem to remember that when I bought this thing, it was like $12.99, $1,300, something like that. With these promo deals that they've got here on Slick Deals, you can get it for $1,069. So it looks like there's $100 off here and some percentage off there and whatever. But if you're thinking about getting a Surface Pro 2 and they've been too expensive, and Lord knows they are awfully expensive, check out that Slick Deals link. And I don't know how long that's going to last, all that stuff. Jack saying, didn't they give you one for free? They did not give me one for free, but I did get a Surface Pro and a Surface RT at TechEd last year at ridiculously cheap prices. So when I got the Surface Pro 2, I was able to sell the Surface that I had and make good, so it was a good down payment for this. So Jack is mentioning, he says, I always pictured the life of Todd Klindt walking into any Microsoft store and getting free stuff. You'd be surprised they don't know who I am. Now, to take that joke a step further, I was in San Antonio and they have a Microsoft store there, and I was getting a skin for my Surface. Now, if you don't have any skins for your Surfaces, just a second, they're pretty cool. So this is a Surface RT, but physically it's the same as a Surface Pro or Surface Pro 2. But you can get these skins for the back, and they're little, vinyl things that stick on. So this is the old one that I've got. I've got a different one now. But you can get these. I got this one at Skinit, SKINIT.com, skinit.com. But you can also, if you're at a Microsoft store, they can print them out for you. They've got a deal with Skinit. And so I was in San Antonio, and we were eating at a place, and it was in the same place as the Microsoft store. So I was with the marketing guy that's with our group, Justin King, and I'm like, hey, we should swing by there and get one of those. So Justin is, he's kind of a stinker. And so I walk into the Microsoft store, and I swear to God, Justin's walking around. Hey, do you guys know who this is? This is Todd Klindt. He's an MVP. Do you guys want to come over and shake his hand? He's got a blog and everything. And he is just being, oh my God. And I'm like, Justin, shut up. So the whole time he's trying to big deal me the whole time. And I'm telling the guy that works there, I'm like, I've never seen this man before in my life. Do you have security? Can you have this guy kicked out? It was, oh my God, it was crazy. So that is not how that works. So Jack is asking, was it custom made? It's absolutely custom made. If you go to Skinit, you can pick which kind of device you have, and it'll make the correct one for your device. For mine, I uploaded the picture of the Firebird there. That's if you can go to my blog, you can see the same picture. Put my URL across the bottom. For the Surfaces, there was a discussion before I went live about. Anyway, they're trying to get me to say famouser, but anyway, back to the Surface thing. So they also make skins for the front here, and I don't have one on the RT now, but I do on my regular Surface Pro. So this was kind of the Rev 1. I think on my new Surface Pro, I've got like my URL across the top, or maybe Twitter or something. I can't see it. I can only see the back. But it's, yeah, they're really cool. And I think these skins are like 10 or 15 bucks or something like that. I will tell you that people have been skinning their laptops forever. So even if you got a regular laptop, they've got skins for them. They've got skins for tablets and phones and all that kind of stuff. But, I've got a Dell 60 something or another over here. They have skins for that. You can do whatever. People have been doing that for years. Not a big deal. And I've been mocking those people for years. I'm like, you actually spent money on that? How can you be so vain? This is ridiculous. And then I got this tablet, and I'm like, oh man, I really need a skin for this. And so I got skins for my original Surface Pro, and this is my original Surface RT. Got these skins, and then got the new Surface Pro. Got a skin for it as soon as I got it. So I can't judge any longer. I almost got a skin for my phone too, but do not have that. Not yet. So yeah, if you've got a tablet, any of those things, the skins are fun and it's good. I also like to think of it, if I lose this anywhere, hopefully somebody will be able to figure out who I am and track me down. But love the skins. If you get a Surface or a Surface Pro, definitely get a skin for them. Laura MF in the chat room is asking for my discount code. I wish I got a discount code. I get nothing. I get bupkis. Nothing at all. Oh, the other thing that Justin was doing is while I was working with the Microsoft guy getting the skin thing set up, he was going around to all the computers and bringing my blog up because he's a jerk like that. Nobody likes Justin. All right. Okay. Final thing, and I'll let you folks go for the evening. And this is an interesting thing, and I struggle on whether to talk about this or not, but it's a SharePoint thing, and it's, you know, people who listen to this Netcast probably care about this kind of stuff. But Microsoft has really been pushing the whole, you know, SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business and all that kind of stuff. And so they recently announced that they were increasing the OneDrive for Business storage. Initially, when you got a OneDrive for Business account with your SharePoint Online or whatever, you got 25 gigabytes. The folks at Microsoft said that is not nearly enough. We want you putting more stuff in there. Every one of you that has 25 gigabytes, now you each get 1 terabyte. You get 1 terabyte and you get 1 terabyte. Everybody gets 1 terabyte. So they went up 40 times. They went from 25 gig to a terabyte, 40 times more storage. So all Office 365 Pro Plus customers get that just automatically as part of their subscription. So that's kind of cool. And I think that kind of comes on the heels of a couple of things. Number one, in Service Pack 1, if you happen to get a version of Service Pack 1 that doesn't destroy your farm, one of the things that you can do is tie your My Sites up to your Office 365 for Business OneDrive thing, and it changes the link and all that. So I think they're trying to get a lot of people to do that, so this is another thing. Another thing is they're doing that crazy thing where they're trying to get you to sign up for it without you realizing that you signed up for it. So now you can actually buy just OneDrive for Business. So before, OneDrive for Business was really just your My Site document library, so you had to have SharePoint Online or Office 365 or whatever. Now they're selling you just that OneDrive for Business as a standalone thing. And I think the idea behind that is what you don't realize is you've got SharePoint in the background, and then if you want to add SharePoint to the thing you've already got, it's an easy transition. All your files are already there. It's pretty good marketing. So that's out there, so if you're using that. Now, I myself, I don't use OneDrive or OneDrive for Business much. I can tell you for just the way that I work, it's sort of limited. And my biggest complaint with OneDrive and OneDrive for Business is the 2 gigabyte file size limit. So we all know that it's SharePoint on the back end. We all know that on the back end, SharePoint is SQL on the back end, and SQL has a 2 gigabyte file size limit. And that's been kind of a big deal. And it doesn't seem like it should be a big deal, but like many of you, my first kind of foray into this whole cloud storage thing was Dropbox, and I got used to using Dropbox and just dropping everything in there. And I absolutely have files larger than 2 gig in there. And so for me to quit using Dropbox and start using OneDrive, well, OneDrive's got to do everything that Dropbox can do. And right now, the files greater than 2 gig is part of the issue. And I am also not a huge fan of how OneDrive or OneDrive for Business shares things. But I think, you know, Microsoft is clearly putting a lot of emphasis on this, and so I think some of these issues will get resolved. But for now, if you've got Office 365 and you've got that Pro Plus, Pro Plus SKU, you're going to notice that your OneDrive for Business that you had nowhere near 25 gig in has even more free space in it. So it's interesting times in the cloudosphere. That came out all wrong. But just interesting stuff. Okay, so that wraps up the topics. Now we just have a couple of more minutes of suffering, and then you can all go home and do whatever it is that you do when you're not hanging out with me during this Netcast. So for shameless self-promotion, the next thing I got going on is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, I think. Yeah, I will be at Microsoft Tech Ed down in Houston, doing a pre-con on installing SharePoint, and then it looks like I'm going to be doing another session on OneDrive for Business. I have been talking to those guys, the SharePoint team, begging for more sessions, and they had a session on OneDrive for Business and how to bolt it all into SharePoint on-prem and the whole hybrid thing. So I think I'll be doing that. I think that's Tuesday at some point. I need to talk to them and find out more about that. But I will be doing both those sessions. Also got word that I believe on Monday I'm going to be hanging out at the Hey Scripting Guy booth. So that's Ed Wilson, the scripting guy. It looks like I'm going to be doing a stint there 10:30, 11 something in the morning on Monday. As I find out more about that, I'll post the schedule up. So, and then I'll be just hanging out at the SharePoint booth during the week, beginning part of the week. So definitely swing by and say, hey, if you're going to be TechEd's a great conference. There's all kinds of fun stuff going on. Definitely check that out. Then in June, I'm not going anywhere, staying put, maybe vacation or something like that. But other than that, just hanging out. But in July, I'm going down to Sydney. Maybe you've heard of it, a little town called Sydney, Australia. Not the capital, mind you. That's Canberra. I think I pronounced that right. But Sydney, great little town if you got a chance to stop by, see what those guys are up to. I'm going to be in Sydney July 15th and 16th at the Sharing the Point, or the Share Conference, whatever they call that down there. I'm going to be talking about PowerShell with SharePoint Online. And also going to be doing my Visual Studio banging against SharePoint session. That one went over real well at the SharePoint conference, and so I'll be doing that one down in Sydney. Last year, I went down to Sydney. Those guys were very gracious, had a blast down there. Had some trouble getting home. Delta and I didn't quite see eye to eye on a couple things, but the Australians themselves were pretty nice. But I didn't go to the Kiwi version. So in the chat room, we've got some Australians. Canberra. So when I was down there last time, they were making fun of me because I pronounced it wrong. But as I was saying, so last year I spent a week in Sydney, had a blast. But the Kiwis, they were doing their conference the next week. I did not stay for that one. And there was a lot of broken hearts, apparently, a lot of weeping openly. So this year, I can't have that. It weighed heavy on my conscience for almost a year. So this year, I will also be in Auckland, New Zealand the next week, doing the same sessions at the Kiwi version over there. So very excited about that. Going to be away from home for 2 weeks. That's always kind of rough, but it's going to be great. So I know in the chat room, we got a few folks that are down in that neck of the woods, so hopefully I'll be able to hook up with those guys. But I think that's it. So I got a couple more conferences that may be happening in the later part of the year. When I find out more about those, this will be the place to find out about it. But thanks to everybody. The chat room's been great. You guys have been very chatty. I apologize I haven't been typing as much back, but I'll keep the chat room open for a bit, and we can hang out, get reconnected, all that. I didn't get a chance to hang out with the chat room as much last week because I was too busy freaking out about stuff not being ready. But we're in a good place this week, so I'll chat a little bit more. But thanks everybody. So next week we will be here, episode 199. I don't know if I'm going to be doing 200 at TechEd or not. I don't know if their facilities will be there and it's going to be busy, but we are coming up on episode 200. Who would have thought that I would have been able to keep going that long and that you guys would have been putting up with me for that long? Frankly, I'm shocked, but that's coming up. So we will we'll see you all next week. As always, if you've got any topic ideas or whatever, you can email me, todd.klindt@rackspace.com, or hit me up on Twitter @ToddKlint. Thanks. Have a good night.